Good evening, Montreal. Beryl Wiseman, editor of the Suburban, with you on another edition of the Suburban Radio Hour with my great friends and colleagues, Anthony Bonaparte, features editor, Mark Lidbetter, sports editor, and Mike Cohen with everything you need to know about entertainment and society news. This has been another busy week. We're going to go over some of the stories. Joel Chashu will be with us discussing seniors groups. And the municipal opposition are calling for better transit for seniors in Montreal. Major Israel Independence Day rally, some 10,000 people at Place de Canada. The city of Montreal has agreed to greater financial transparency after a lot of pressure from Ensemble Montreal, the opposition. Chelsea St. Pierre will be with us discussing the growth of the West Island Blues Festival to include now a fourth municipality and many other important things you need to know about. So pick up your copy. I want to draw your attention before getting to our first guest, who is also the subject of a front page story, to our editorial, which is that universities are not daycares on our dime. 16.5 million university students in North America. Some 4,500 by the best police estimates across North America have participated in these occupations of private property, these encampments. Half have been charged. But the thing that I'd like you to think about, particularly in Montreal, which is the last major city in North America, us in Toronto, I believe, actually, who have encampments where the police haven't been called in, where the universities have succumbed. Since when do 100 or 200 kids, know nothing, capricious kids, some haters, but mostly ignorant kids, decide for a community, in McGill's case of 30,000 people, what the policies should be? Since when do adults submit to children? I hope it gets you as furious as it gets me. And on that topic, I'd like you all to go to the Canadian Judicial Council. You'll find the website very easy to get to. And if you're as infuriated by a decision that came down last week by Justice Marc St. Pierre, leave your comment, make a complaint. Marc St. Pierre is a judge who denied McGill's request for an injunction to clear out this encampment. Now, on his first ground that there wasn't urgency, another judge had decided that as well some weeks ago. But that judge said, however, the occupation of private property is unlawful. St. Pierre, in an unheard of judgment, said the following: that private property rights now must be viewed in the context of freedom of expression, and that these occupations of private property must be seen as, quote, sending a message. He took the wording of the defendant's lawyers. So here's a justice of Superior Court who's been on the court for decades, turning upside down centuries of Western law. Not just centuries of Western law and jurisprudence, but Section 7 of the Quebec Charter of Rights and Freedoms that says La demeure est inviolable. Your property, your home, is inviolate from any occupation, from the state, from any intervention. He now says that it's only sending a message. And, you know, your front lawn, somebody says something you don't like and they want to send you a message as long as they're peaceful, and they sit there in their little pump tent, well, you may just have to put up with it. And if you think this is as politicized a judgment and ridiculous as I think, Canadian Judicial Council.ca, and there's the first line you'll see. The second line after About Us is complaint. His name is Justice Marc, with a C, St. Pierre. Big story of the week was also our next guest, who we've had on before, and you know he's been so successful getting 6 injunctions to protect Montrealers, and particularly the Jewish community, from the anti-Semitic mobs out there. Attorney Neil Oberman, who gave very dramatic testimony at the Commons Committee on Anti-Semitism. Neil, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Beryl. Appreciate it.
Neil, I really want you to talk to our audience. What was your message to the committee, and what was the reception by the committee?
Well, normally it's a great high honor to proceed before parliamentarians in order to testify. But I have to say, Beryl, if I may, that it was a sad day for all Canadians, that in 2024, lawyers have to come and represent students in order to go to school. This was a very sad day for Canada and especially for Quebec. My message was clear, unambiguous, and to the point. Enforce the laws. Don't create more laws that you're not going to enforce. Understand what's going on. This is an erosion of Canadian values, an erosion of Quebec values, and it has to stop. And the buck stops from the leaders up in Ottawa, because when the Prime Minister of Canada says, I don't agree with anti-Semitism, it's horrific, it's terrible, but at the same time sends another message when he invites a former Nazi Ukrainian SS officer into our great House of Commons and asks for to give him a standing ovation, you're sending mixed messages. And you know what the problem is, Beryl? When you send mixed messages, people who are mixed up take that message and turn it into hate, aggression, and intimidation. I, as a lawyer, reject it. Rule of law is what we need to follow to find solutions to this problem.
It's an open door to illiberal license, and what was very sadly, I was going to say laughable, but sadly laughable in the incident of the former SS officers, that either the Prime Minister or the Deputy Prime Minister, Christopher Freeland, said he fought the Russians. He fought against the Russians in World War II. And I just finished my comments, if you heard, about how young people don't know history, how young people know nothing. But when the leaders of a country can't figure out that fighting the Russians against the Russians in World War II, who were our allies fighting the Nazis, something's wrong in that. So it's not only, okay, they said they didn't vet the guy, which is bad enough, but how can responsible people stand up in the House and say that and not have a light go over their heads?
Well, I'm a simple attorney, just trying to help out my community. And by the way, what happens in one community...
You become a great civil rights champion. And yes,
I'll tell you,
Jews have a right to civil rights as well. We are not the establishment.
That is correct. And what I wanted to say was, if you really want to bring change, if people are really interested in bringing change, they first have to change the way they think, right? Because if you think that you're weak and that you have no power and that you can't stand up,
that's critical.
Then that's what's going to happen.
Yep.
I send a message of empowerment, a message of self-worth, that we as a community, we as people who live and develop this province, develop this country, we have every single right that everybody else has. But here's the rights that we shouldn't have. The right to hate, the right to intimidate, and the right to try to eliminate other people's rights. And I'll tell you, as long as I have the breath in me, as long as I have the ability, I will fight for everybody who stands on the right side of justice. Because like I said, the rule of law is the way. That is the way.
Let me just ask you, what was the reception by the committee? What did you like? What did you not like?
Here's what I liked. Well, I liked the fact that, I could say my piece in a way that was meaningful. 2, it shows where our tax dollars are going, where they had the appropriate equipment and structures available to hear the citizens. But what I didn't like is when people try to pass the buck and say, well, it's not us in the federal government, it's the provinces that have to handle it. To me, the passing of the buck has to stop. The government of Canada has to stop passing the buck around and start taking responsibility for the problems that it created with the vacuums that it created, because if it wasn't for them, we probably would be in a better situation. Your listeners should understand that when you do nothing, you get nothing. When you stand up, you'll be heard. Today, I choose to stand and be heard.
Neil Oberman and tens of thousands of us are standing with you. Thank you for your service to the community, and have a great Victoria's Day weekend.
Thanks. All the best.
And again, thank you, Neil Oberman. Thank you for your service, and thank you for taking the time. Our mayor of Montreal always tells people, always has another idea for why we shouldn't use our cars. And one of her major things, we have a great public transport system. Well, the reality is Montreal's one of the few cities of over 1 million people with an unfinished subway system, under-equipped bus system, and now one of our front page stories, seniors groups and the official opposition on Montreal City Hall are calling the mayor and the city in on this for better transit for seniors. And with that story, we have a great friend and our colleague, Joel Shashu. Joel, how are you?
Hey, Beryl. Hey, I'm good. Hey, listen, of course we have an unfinished bus system. We have an unfinished city. What do you think is going to happen? So, Beryl, how many Montrealers do you think are over the age of 65?
Well, let me see. Statistics Canada says that by 2030, a third of the country will be over 65. And yeah, we know today's 65 is like yesterday's 55, but it's still the baseline for government funding. So if 2030, a third or 33% are going to be over 65, let me hazard a guess and say we're at, let's say the Montreal population right now is 25 to 28% over 65.
Well, peg it at 350,000 people, give or take a few.
That's the Ville de Montréal or the Ile de Montréal?
That's the city of Montreal.
So the city of Montreal is 1.7 million people, so 350,000 out of that, yeah.
Less than a quarter. So it's a significant number of people, and yes, you're correct. So the opposition, the official opposition, Ensemble Montréal, and the seniors group, that they have a very Quebec name called the Association Québécoise de défense des droits des personnes retraitées et pré-retraitées. They want better public transit services. Now, Montreal North Mayor Christine Black has been asking for improvements to targeted measures. That means specific things that the transport agency in the city can do to make getting around in this city easier for seniors. Now, what we often hear from the city, from the Plante administration, is that their measure to offer free transit services to seniors has had a great impact, and it has. It's like double-digit increase in seniors using public transit, but that only happens to help those from an economic standpoint. It doesn't do anything about those who are not taking public transit for reasons of limited mobility or concerns about safety. Now, do you know that out of the 68 metro stations, only 27 have functioning elevators? And even in those cases, and even in the rest of them, you can't always depend on the escalators, as anybody who uses Metro on a daily basis knows. But never mind trying to get through the front door.
But Joel, I thought that Montreal did those breakdowns for the charm of the city, to add to the charm of the city. Isn't that part of?
Well, that's what they write on the brochure.
Perfect.
But so one of the other things is, if you recall, those navet door shuttles, those special shuttles for seniors, like those went the way of the dodo during the pandemic. And they're not coming back. And the reason why is that the STM found that only 2% of the users of those shuttles, those Golden Age shuttles, use that exclusively. So they're betting on improving services and other measures that people that seniors will be attracted to. That hasn't happened yet. Now, The other thing that the opposition wants, and along with this seniors group, is for the city to finally strike a council of seniors to collect information, to advise, to advocate on behalf of the senior population. Now, this is something that for years the current administration has rejected, until the last election, when they said they would consider it, but they haven't heard anything. There hasn't been a whisper about it. So Chantal Rossi of Ensemble Montréal is crying foul about this. And the city's response, and it was Eric Allen Caldwell, who's the chair of the STM, noted that the city has a plan for seniors. It has a strategy and an initiative, and it struck a committee, and it's coming up with an action plan. So,
well, we look forward to. We know you're going to keep your ears and eyes and ears on this.
I know it's a lot in a short little bit, but there's more to come.
We're going to look forward to your keeping an eye on the city and on all things municipal, and we look forward this week to your. I want to advise our listeners to very interesting goings on at Côte-des-Neiges NDG Borough between the mayor and Councillor Sonny Moros.
Oh yeah, there's some testy takes.
So let's save it for the paper for the readers. We'll talk about it this coming next week. Thanks a lot, Joel Chash.
Have a good evening.
Happy Victoria Day weekend. Let's get a relief a bit from encamping students sending a message and a transport system that doesn't work. West Island is partying, and our own Chelsea St. Pierre is with us. Chelsea, the West Island Blues Fest that Pierrefonds Mayor Jim Bass and DDO Councillor Errol Johnson started 20 years ago. They give so much money to charities. They're now in 4 cities. What's going on out there?
Well, Dorval decided to get on board this year. So they're popping in right in the middle of it. So it'll be in Dorval on August 10th. And then Pointe Claire that joined last year, I believe, or 2 years ago. They'll be hosting again on September 7th. And then, of course, there's the VIP night in Pierrefonds Roxborough, May 30th. And then in DDO, so the three free ones will continue to be hosted. And everybody's very excited with the expansion. The festival is always full of people, and the benefit for having it in Dorval is that...
And I understand they're expanding the number of beneficiaries, right? The number of organizations benefiting?
So they added Abovas this year,
Right.
a little bit at the last minute. Abovas is basically a company that offers a chauffeuring service, very friendly.
It's a nonprofit. It's not a company.
Yes, sorry about that. Yes, and so they're offering a free service, all volunteer basis.
I had to clarify that, or else we're going to get a lot. They're going to get a lot of calls. Why are you giving it to a company? But and of course, as always, some of the money's going to the West Island Black Community Association, the West Island Women's Shelter.
Literacy Unlimited, AJWA, the West Island Palliative Care Center, Portage. Rehabilitation Center for teens, and the West Island Association for the Intellectually Handicapped as well.
Did Jim and Errol want to expand to a fifth municipality? I don't know who's left. I know they'll expand to Beaconsfield or Kirkland.
Beaconsfield and Kirkland are still up for grabs. We never know.
Okay.
They're very open. It was mentioned at the press conference that they're open to expanding as far and wide as they can get.
First concert again is when?
May 30th. That's the VIP night. So that's the launch.
But the actual first concert?
Yeah. So the first free concert will take place on July 6th. That one's in DDO.
Perfect. And we look forward to all the reports on that and much more this week. Thank you, Chelsea St. Pierre. Have a great Victoria's Day weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, bro.
And before I turn it over to my dear friend and colleague, Anthony Bonaparte, let us just go to the CJD Traffic Center and check on the roads as you're listening to the Suburban Radio Hour on CJD 800.